5 or 6 parts mulch, and you'll have as good a mulch as you could buy. I use the cedar trees, ground up cedar trees, because I have my own chipper. And we just, when we cut cedar off the ranch, it goes to that chipper, and it's great mulch like it is. We want to make it really good, then we mix, you know, a bag of the revitalizer compost with the equivalent of 5 or 6 bags of the cedar mulch, and it's an outstanding mulch.
What about putting compost with oak leaves?
That's fine, make them break down a lot faster. If you run your mower through the oak leaves and chop them up a little bit, that works even better. That is most of what I want to tell you about growing roses. Roses are easy to grow. Don't let anybody scare you away from roses. I know if you read the books, you feel like you have to spray them every 2 weeks and fertilize them at an exact time and prune them in an exact fashion. Not anymore. Own root roses are easy. They bloom profusely. If you're not getting good blooms, you've either got not enough sunlight, not enough fertilizer, or a bad variety, or not necessarily a bad variety. Sometimes it's a trade-off with the color and intensity of blooms as to how freely they bloom. And some of the really, really award-winning showy roses just don't bloom as heavily as some of the others. But there literally is a rose for almost every use. And even things like the Lady Banks, even though it only blooms once a year, man, it is gorgeous when it comes into bloom. Be watching over the next few weeks. I'm seeing the Mutabilis, the butterfly rose, in bloom right now. Flowers just all over them. If you've got room for it, every landscape ought to have 2 or 3 of those things in it just because they're so pretty. But today's modern small landscapes, most of them aren't big enough to accommodate many butterfly roses. Yes, ma'am?
It's my first time playing with roses.
Okay.
And I got the double knockout.
Uh-huh.
If I touch the soil and it's dry on the top, is it time to water?
Stick your finger in it. If it's dry 2 knuckles deep, it's time to water.
2 knuckles.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
The names of the roses, like I think I've heard there's a variety like ladybird. Can we assume that that's a grafted or an own root?
He can't assume anything. Look for that shiny metal tag.
Okay.
Got a shiny metal tag on it, it's grafted.
Do you know anything about the ladybird? Some
I
of the
don't know that
ladybird
one.
varieties?
No, I don't.
Okay, I think it's it's probably a grafted. It's a newer rose.
Probably.
It's a new rose and it's probably a grafted.
Mhm.
Okay.
Now, there are some rose specialists that are coming out with their own series of roses. Mike Shoup, who is the man that founded the Antique Rose Emporium, Mike has bred a bunch of hardy new roses that he's calling the Pioneer Series. And they're brand new roses, but they're going to be on their own roots. And if Mike's involved with it, they're probably pretty good roses. The Extension Service, they kind of don't get it, and they don't really know what they're doing. But they have come out with some new roses that are really fairly good. They're calling Earth Kind. You know, they have to make up a name for everything, and that's Steve George's name for his little pet roses, are Earth Kind roses. But some of those things are pretty good. Most of the English pillar roses, if you think our climate's like England, then try growing them. If you realize that Texas is a little different, those things are not going to do especially well here without a lot of... Again, if you work hard enough at growing things, you can grow almost anything if temperatures, you know, doesn't limit the growth. But I don't have time to be coddling and babying any plant in my landscape. It basically, it gets planted and it's make it or don't make it. I'm not going to be out there fawning over you every day trying to make, I did that with orchids for enough years, and then I finally figured out there are orchids that are easy and orchids that are tough. But roses can be some of the prettiest plants in your landscape. If you've got good sun, anything approaching reasonable soil, and the proper amount of room, there's no reason you shouldn't have an absolutely gorgeous rose garden. Yes, sir.
Do you have to have sun like all day long? I mean, I have my rose bushes planted next to a fence and that shades it for...
The more sun, the better. And if it's a choice between morning and afternoon, afternoon sun is better.
Okay. And can you plant rose bushes? Like I planted my blackberry bushes I bought here in the vicinity of the rose bushes. Is that a problem? Or?
Not a problem for me unless I'm trying to pick the blackberries and get stuck by the roses on one hand and the blackberries on the other. There's no interaction between the two.
Are they the same family because they have thorns? Or
No.
No.
No. There are a lot of other things that have thorns. Mesquites and cactus and all sorts of stuff. Yes, sir.
molasses, any, scheduled use for roses or?
Molasses, of course, stimulates the microbes in the soil. If you want to throw it on 3 or 4 times a year, it'd probably be a benefit. One other thing that I ought to show off more often that I just forget to, the push-pull hoe. If you fight weeds, this is the most incredible piece of equipment you will ever have. And if you grow roses, it's really great because you can reach underneath the plant to get weeds without endangering your hands and forearms. Most expensive hoe you will ever buy. They don't make a decent one in the United States. We have to buy these things out of Switzerland, and your dollar's not the strongest thing in the world. But if you really get a bunch of roses, or if you got a vegetable garden, get somebody to give you one of these the first time. They really owe you a big favor, and you will be eternally grateful. Also, if you really get into roses, rose gloves are neat. This is probably not big enough. No, I can't get my hand into them. Yeah, roses, bougainvilleas, anything else. But if I could get my hand into it, which I can't, you find that it protects you almost up to the elbow.
Is that leather?
Yeah, they're good leather, and rose
That's
gloves
what I know.
are really good. But like you just mentioned, they ought to call them bougainvillea gloves, rose gloves, blackberry gloves, the
Thorn
whole
gloves.
works.
Is that the natural?
No, no, this just, the beauty of the leather is that it comes way on up your arm. You can also, Donna gave me something that's actually Velcro, that's a leather strap, or a leather sheet with straps that goes around it. That's also real good. But for the most part, you ladies, especially if you're trying to keep from getting scratched up, the
Oh, the whole thing is
Rose
leather
gloves,
then? The
yeah.
bottom part's leather as well,
yeah,
okay.
the whole thing is leather. But they will be a big benefit to you.
How about that other type of glove you got there?
These are nice little gloves that I wear when I'm pruning and things. This is a nitrile type material that is relatively thorn proof, and they're very breathable. You know, these things are a lot more comfortable, but I'll guarantee your rose thorn will rip you up right through that. These are great for the palms of your hand. You know who buys a lot of these from us? Are the UPS guys, because it makes it so easy to grab a box. You know, and that's why they call them tool grip. You know, put your hand in a pair of those and then grab a pair of pruning shears. It's amazing what a good grip you get on things. But that's going to make it easier, but it's not really going to give you the protection that something like good leather does.
This fellow asked you about the molasses. Does it matter if it's wet or dry molasses? Okay.
Dry molasses, all that is molasses that's been soaked into something else. Some sort of meal. The better dry molasses, like the Nature's Guide stuff, is soaked into soybean meal. Which soybean meal has a lot of good qualities too. Sometimes you'll see it soaked into corn cobs, but it's not crystalline, it doesn't dissolve. You'll have a real soggy mess if it gets wet. And then when it dries out, it'll turn into building bricks. I've never seen anything get as hard as a 50-pound bag of dry molasses if it's soaked onto the wrong substrate.
So go with the wet. It's probably easier to.
It's a lot cheaper, Let me tell you just one or two things. A week from tomorrow, Sunday the 21st, I think it is, a lot of y'all know George Gaitan, our guitarist, that's been here for several parties, and his music I used on the radio show. He has a new CD coming out, and we're going to do a release party for him a week from Sunday, from 11 till 3. We kind of like the name he chose for his new CD. He's calling it Shades of Green. And it is all guitar and George. I mean, there's nothing else in there. It's 100% just good acoustic guitar. And it'll be a party. We're not going to be able to have anything on the order of our Mother's Day party, but anytime George is here with his guitar, it's going to be a bit of a party. And it doesn't cost a thing to come enjoy, so I hope you put it on your calendar to come. Yes, sir.
Speaking of Shades of Green, when you were talking to Howard this morning, you mentioned your revamped website.
We have
I
our-
went on to Shades of Green, and I got the one in Florida.
Shades of Green SA.
SA.
Shades of Green SA. Thank you, everybody. No, if you've looked at it in the past, we launched a new website this week. If you find typos or anything, tell us, because there's a world of material on there. It's about 10 times more material we had on the old website, but we don't have all the bugs out of it yet.
Is it SA with the, is it all one?
Just all run together. Shadesofgreensa.com.
It's stuff here.
Oh, okay, cool.
Well, guys, thanks for coming. Next week is all about annuals. Hopefully the weather is going to be to the point that we can plant all those wonderful spring annuals, and we'll just have a lot of fun talking about color.